Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
Will a cruise port be developed in Lighthouse Point, Eleuthera? Some environmentalists say they hope not. That story is coming up.
The former Minister of Tourism says he believes that gaming operators are being victimized.
The BCA says the point development is still not complying with the heads of agreement.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Top news tonight, the government has agreed to hold off on imposing the 5% stamp tax on gaming patrons and have also agreed not to enforce the sliding scale tax which was implemented July 1st. This comes just a day after attorneys for 4 major web shop operators filed an application in the Supreme Court seeking leave for judicial review on several of government's tax proposals for the industry.
It was adjourned to the 5th of October, and as is proper in the case, the Attorney General gave an undertaking that because we were challenging this aspect of the law and the matter was before the court, that the government wouldn't insist on execution in the meantime.
Wayne Monroe represents Percy's Island Game, Ashore Win, and Paradise Games. After filing the application in court yesterday for leave, the Supreme Court adjourned the matter to early October. Now, this was not a court order, but according to Attorney General Carl Bethel, was something extended as a courtesy to the court and web shop operators until they return to court in October. For Monroe and the web shop operators, there's a lot to look forward to.
Put it this way, if we are right and we get leave, then the court will be asked to grant a stay until it hears the application, and we've parked a date a little later in October, hopefully for that if we get leave. If we don't get leave, then they'll say you have no case. And it happened. So we're now at the point simply of saying whether the court will give us leave or not.
The government and web shop operators have been at odds since government's announcement of increased taxes for the industry, one of which is a 5% tax for patrons that would have been coming into effect tomorrow. Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar, who has responsibility for gaming, yesterday said Bahamians gaming is not a productive use of their money. But before they returned to court on October 5th, Monroe said there are plans for both sides to come to the table once again and negotiate.
We're in litigation, so I have a duty to say to him, we think this regulation is vague and void, and if they discuss it and see it, there are ways that they can remedy it, and if they wish to consult us on it, we're prepared to lend assistance. When we did the 2014 Act, we actually were consulted, so we told them you cannot do a retroactive tax because that would be legally bad, and we actually sat down and worked out the way to properly do it.
Well, despite government's decision to hold off on new taxes for web shops for now, former Tourism Minister Obi Wilchcombe says he is troubled by the ongoing conversation and he believes that gaming operators are being victimized. With more on this, here's George Bain.
As the discussion continues surrounding the taxation of gaming houses, former Minister of Tourism Obi Wilchcombe says he believes that gaming operators have been through enough and that now they're being victimized. Former Tourism Minister Obi Wilchcombe says the minister's administration must take into consideration everything that gaming operators have been through when the Christie administration took them through the regulation process and the millions in taxes they were forced to pay. Wilchcombe says he believes that gaming operators are being victimized.
I believe that they have been victimized, and they have been asking to be heard. Lightfoot Key asked to be heard, and they were. They were asked to be heard, and we very quickly did the shuffle. We shuffled our way backward, and I'm thinking that why in the world our people aren't being heard?
Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar supported the legalization of web shop gaming. He had said there's no good that comes from gaming. Wilchcombe says he's not fond of the comments being made by government officials about gaming operators.
I did not like the comments being made about their wealth. I do not like the comments being made about the days of doing well and now you got to go through days of not doing well. I don't agree with those things. I think that it's certainly sending a message of being unfair. They're being targeted. I think it's wrong. These individuals, whether you like it or not, they have paid their dues. We made them pay their dues, those who couldn't. And people are forgetting that there were many, many more who were in the business. I think it's 33 who were in the business. And when we moved to regularized, we imposed the taxes, the back tax in particular, and many had to get out of the business. That's how come we ended up with 8 and 9.
Wilchcomb says he recommends that the government and gaming operators come to the table and discuss everything that's at stake.
I think it's absolutely wrong, and I think that the government and the gaming operators must have even more discussion. I just think in the terms of fairness, the government should be and not believe that it's okay to agree with one group when they raise hell, but when this group raises hell, you say, big deal, who cares? I think we have to care about everybody, because business is business. And if we were doing it to some other business, or we penalize others' monopolies, then what would we be doing?
Reporting for our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
All right, thanks, Giorgio. In other news, 3 environmental groups are coming together to oppose any development at Lighthouse Point in South Eleuthera. This comes as Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar insists the historic site and its surrounding beaches won't be developed. Jared Hicks tells us more.
The other thing that we need to consider in terms of this cruise ship model is that it is a very polluting industry.
Re-Earth President Sam Duncombe insists that foreign direct investment isn't the best way forward for economic development in the Bahamas, and plans for a cruise port at Lighthouse Point should be completely rejected. Those efforts appeared to strike a minor victory yesterday when Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar told reporters that no sitting politician would support the commercial development of the land surrounding Lighthouse Point. Despite that, de Aguilar acknowledged that Lighthouse Point is a big area, and questions were being asked concerning whether or not portions of the 700-acre site would be approved for development. Duncombe believes the entire 700 acres ought to be protected.
As far as Minister de Aguilar's quotes on, saving the point, I agree, that's a great step in the right direction, but we want it all, okay? We want the whole thing.
De Aguilar described the historic Eleuthera site as absolutely stunning. However, Duncombe questioned whether the tourism minister had a full appreciation for the value of the surrounding ecosystem.
The whole area has every single kind of coppice other than pine forest. So we got wetlands, we've got beach shrubs, we have rocky shoreline, we have limestone cliffs. There's so much out there, saltwater ponds that the minister referred to as a swamp. Come on, man, not in 2018. The swamp is such a negative, derogatory term for a living, breathing ecosystem that is really not acceptable today.
In recent weeks, Duncombe and fellow environmentalists have opposed plans to sell the privately owned land, questioning whether the advantages of development outweigh the disadvantages. On the one hand, the development is expected to create around 150 jobs. However, Paco Nunez of Save the Bays says cruise operators can be here today and gone tomorrow.
In Bimini, Resorts World Bimini built a 1,000-foot pier, destroyed 14 reefs a few years ago to bring a cruise ship in. Well, to this day, that cruise ship does not arrive there anymore. Foreign companies, large conglomerates, their plans change. To ruin a place like Lighthouse Point for a cruise ship that may come for a few years and then, because things change for Disney or for whoever else develops it, for them to leave and leave the wreckage there, that has happened across the Bahamas countless times.
Now, Nunez responded to de Aguilar's comments, but he says that they hope that the entire area remains protected.
The minister has said that he will preserve some of this area, for sure. And he can't say yet what will happen to the rest. Whereas if he spoke to us first and had an ongoing consultation, a public consultation with the people who live there, then he would know that this entire area needs to be preserved. And there is no way to develop this, certainly for a cruise ship port, without an environmental impact. Because cruise ship ports, the environmental impact is well known and documented. It's not avoidable.
Despite de Aguilar's comments, Duncombe says she and others are concerned over government's failure to definitively say whether or not it has approved any plans for the development of the South Eleuthera site. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Hicks.
There are still not sufficient Bahamians working on the point development. That's the cry of Bahamas Contractors Association President Leonard Sands. Sands is calling on the Labor Minister to address their continued concerns, as he says they were not properly addressed the first time around. Jillian Gray reports.
Bahamas Contractors Association President Leonard Sands says they are still not satisfied with the amount of Bahamian contractors at the point development.
We have not been satisfied by the Minister of Labor's response to our initial concerns. We have seen again in the dailies about the increased the minister noted in the Bahamian workforce on the site, it is still not in keeping with the heads of agreement. We hope, though, that the government of the Bahamas really looks at the concerns of the Contractors Association and the labor community to say, how can they increase the participation for local contractors and the labor force.
The heads of agreement for the project stipulates that there be a 70-30 workforce ratio. However, Sands says the labor minister has not laid out when that ratio will take effect.
At the last communication from the Department of Labor, they had commented that there are now, I think, 42 or 43 Bahamians working on the project. What they did not comment on was how many non-Bahamians are on the project. At the time of the first investigation, there were 23 and 24 Bahamians and 72 Chinese. I have to believe that since they're doing the first hour and the second hour, there has to be a lot more labor there. So if the Bahamian complement has risen, I have to believe so has the foreign complement of workforce on the site.
Sands said as the country progresses, there will always be a heads of agreement, and contractors must be a part of the process.
We need to have a seat at the table so that we could say, here's how we'd like to advise you, Mr. Minister. Do not allow them to say you don't have the workforce. Do not allow them to say your contractors don't have the capability. Let's continue to tell the minister we have all the things here, what they're concerned about, and allow us to be a vital partner in these developments and not just stand by and see them being developed in our doorsteps and no participation in a real and meaningful way.
The BCA president said they will not rest till the matter is properly addressed and added that it's disappointing that their concerns are seemingly going unheard.
Our concerns from the first structure persist, and there is no significant, noticeable Bahamian workforce or contractor base depicted on that site. That is our challenge, and we will not rest until that is addressed to the satisfaction of our membership.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
Ever worked out in a dungeon? In tonight's edition of Fit Friday, I found out what it's like to get a little more than a sweatin' in the dungeon fitness. Meet Matson Delancey. He's the trainer here at the Dungeon Fitness.
It's a mixture. We're gonna go through the workout. I'm gonna teach you how to do the snatch. We're gonna go into the actual workout, which consists of the snatch and a few other little things. Won't be as bad as you think, even though you just ate. And from there on, then we can kind of have a cool down.
Is there something called a snatch?
Yes, the movement is called a snatch. It's an Olympic lift. And it's really, to me, one of the basic and easiest moves you can do in CrossFit / strength and conditioning / Olympic lifting.
Easy? Sure. With just the assessment and instruction on how to do each workout, I was sweating.
Done. So, basically have 3 bars and a sled and a medicine ball. Ready to get started?
Yeah. Ready to get started, but look at me. This makes sense, right? So we had 5 workouts to complete, 10 reps each. The goal was to see how many rounds we can get in within 25 minutes.
Straighten those arms, there you go. And when your arms go up, make sure feel that you're like punching the ceiling. So you want your arms to power through as your body is. There you go. Happy?
No, that's 6.
Let's go, bro. 7, good. 7 tall.
1 more.
Come on. 3. And walk it. Right in. Walk. Take a look. All right, that's that. Up and down, let's go. Nice. Breathe. Everything in your posture is off. Good. Eye level straight.
That's it.
All right, overhead, let's go up. Now sit down on the floor. And you officially come. 1 round.
1 round?
Yep.
You have to do more?
Well, that's only 6 minutes you work for. You have 25 minutes.
Take 6 minutes out of 25 to have 19 more minutes?
Yeah.
So I kept going.
Ready? Hit it. 20 seconds. Run. Don't take the little ones. Control your breathing. Control everything else. There you go.
25 minutes.
I am impressed. I will not lie. That a lot of people don't do 3 rounds on their first time ever. 1 here. 2, I gave you all the weight.
You know what they call me? They call me Chocolate Thunder.
You did well, even though at some point I know we had to cut your weight down just a little bit to make sure you can complete form and technique, which I said is most important. But other than that, very well done. Like, you did 3 rounds. Once again, like I said, a lot of people don't finish 1 proper. If not, 2 is usually good.
And I did 3.
You did superb.
Still to come, how much money have Ragged Islanders received since Hurricane Irma? Find out after the break.